Alright guys, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. This week we've got the Memorial Tournament, which is going to be a good one. Just looking at the price points, it's going to be one that we can attack. Now yes, there are going to be less players in the field this week than last week, which means that there should be a lot more lineups that have 6 for 6 across the cut line, between FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. But this still is going to be a pretty interesting week. Obviously they're playing at the same course this week as they did last week. It seems like the fairway, or the rough length, is going to be pretty much the same, if not more, aka they're not going to mow it this week. Then they're going to cut down the greens a little bit. So it's going to be a pretty interesting week. I do think it's going to change the key stats that we're looking at a little bit, and I'll get into that in a second here. But do want to go over the quick recap of last week. So 3 of our top 6 players finished T7 or better: Hovland, Woodland, and Patrick Cantlay. But we also had 2 miscuts up there, Brian Stewart and Mark Hubbard. They were just too good to pass up on at their price points, especially Brian Stewart, who was checking all the boxes. That kind of just happens last week. So a lot of the lineups were in the norm for DraftKings. 4 out of 6 was the norm last week. But my cash lineup actually did pretty good. I'll post it up here. 5 out of 6 across the cut line. But this pretty much sums up why I didn't like last week as much as I originally thought I was going to, was that the lineup path that we had last week led us to a lineup that most likely had 5 out of 6 across the cut line. The lineup path was not there for an optimal lineup, especially in cash or for your main build. And typically I don't like to attack those lineups. Yes, you could have had a path for 6 across the cut line, but it wouldn't have been an optimal path. You're associating risk in there. So that's exactly what I did with my lineup. You see I had Nick Taylor in there, who Nick Taylor's going to be a better play this week, but last week he was a little bit riskier because we hadn't seen him. Then obviously I was kind of just scheduling in a miscut there, trying to get 6 for 6 across the cut line. Kind of took a little bit more risk in there than I typically would like to. That's how I ended up on that build, which is pretty different from my first slick build. It's just kind of one of those awkward weeks. Had a decent amount of lineups that had 6 for 6 across the cut line, but none of them really aligned to have a stellar week. And that's because that 7K range last week was loaded with quality plays, but none of them really separated themselves, except for really Brian Stewart. I kind of just continued the form with Mark Hubbard, but you look at Ian Poulter, Kevin Streelman, just some of the players that were in our player pool as well, that, this week or going forward, we're going to have more of a sample size to be able to go on and attack. Let's get into this week. We'll touch on the key stats. So key stats, we're going to go back to ball striking. I think that ball striking will be a key stat this week again. Strokes gained tee to green, going to be a key stat. Driving accuracy, though, with that rough length being raised up, I think that driving accuracy is going to be a key stat, and we did see that kind of a decent amount last week as well. Then birdie to bogey ratio, I'm going to go back to as well. It was a pretty solid stat to look at last week. Let's talk about recent form. Obviously Bryson's been in great recent form. We know what he's done since the break, just been a stud. Patrick Cantlay as well. All these guys right here, Victor Hovland, Daniel Berger, we could go deeper than that as well. This field is absolutely loaded this week. It's going to be pretty easy to make some quality builds, where last week it was a little bit more difficult. And then just going back to the course history, obviously Ricky has just been stellar at this course. 4 straight made cuts. Hideki as well, just been a stud. Patrick Cantlay now has 3 straight T7 or better finishes here. And then Gary Woodland, 4 straight made cuts as well. He had a top 10 finish here last week. So those are going to be some of the players that we're looking at, but let's get into the player pool for this week. All right, so obviously we can start the player pool here out on the high end. I will start off with Bryson DeChambeau. If you guys want to go back to the well with Bryson, you perfectly can. He had a 22nd finish here last year, and then the year before that, he had a first overall finish. Obviously, he's just been a stud since break. All of his finishes had been top 10 or better. So obviously, Bryson's going to be a good play. Justin Thomas, you can go back to the well with. 3 out of his last 4 starts at this course have been top 10 finishes. Rory, I don't mind as well. It's just absolutely loaded on the top end. I don't really see the need to go with Dustin Johnson, but both Rory and DJ have a top 10 finish and a miscut here. They're both, pretty solid stat fits as well. You can go back to the well with Colin Morikawa if you want to. I just don't really exactly see the point of paying up this week. I think we can start a lot of our builds out at Patrick Cantlay if we want to go that route. He's a great stat fit. Once again, this week he is top 10 according to my model this week. And then obviously his recent form, or his just form this whole year, has been stellar. Only 2 of his finishes have been worse than T17. And then obviously he's had 3 straight top 10 finishes at this course. We saw him kind of struggle a little bit early last week, where some of his putts were just grazing the cup and not dropping. This week, maybe that goes his way a little bit more like it did on Sunday, like we saw. Going down a little bit further, Webb Simpson, just our guy this pretty much whole year. Webb Simpson, a top 5 stat fit. He ranks out really well. The lowest stat that he has that we're looking at this week is driving accuracy, and that's 20, okay? This guy should absolutely tear up this course. This course is pretty much made for him, it seems like. You look at his recent form, yes, he had that one random miscut. That was just after break. It really just seemed like he had one bad round in there. Came back with the victory at the RBC and then a T8 at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So I really like Webb this week as well. Go back to the well with Victor Hovland as well if you want to. I don't want to touch on this top end too much, but the only thing we were worried about Victor Hovland last week was that he didn't have any course experience here, and obviously that didn't matter too much. He had a 3rd overall finish. Really just been a stud since the break. It's been getting progressively better as well. So Victor Hovland, you can go back to the well there if you want as well. He still ranks out as a top 10 stat fit this week. The only thing that we start to worry about with Victor Hovland is maybe that wear out. The burnout. Maybe we saw that with Brian Stewart and Mark Hubbard last week. Hovland has now played the same amount of events as them, so that is a little bit worrisome. Hideki, I like it as well this week, kind of echoing the same stuff last week. You look at his 4 recent starts of this course, it is 22nd last week, 6th, 13th, and then a 45th finish. So Hideki I like as well. Going down to Xander Schauffele. So Xander Schauffele, I just like a ton. He's had 2 straight top 14, he's had 2 straight top 14 finishes here at this course now. The start before that was a miscut, but his recent form is stellar. He is a good stat fit as well. He ranks top 15 according to my model this week. He just grades out as a guy that should make the cut this week. And then we got Tiger here. I don't really get the price point of Tiger here. I think he's going to be highly chalky. He has a 9th and a 23rd finish here. Obviously, it's just been really stellar pretty much this whole year. 3 top 10 finishes, and then he had the one bad cut or tournament at the Genesis Open. We haven't really seen him in a little bit, but he did look good at that little charity tournament that was played earlier. Let's talk about Daniel Berger as well. Daniel Berger, we know he's been a guy that we've been on a ton this year. Yes, he doesn't have any course experience here, but he, once again, is just going to be a great stat fit. His lowest stat fit is his bogey avoidance, which is 56, but other than that, he's a stud as well. He's a top 10 stat fit. Obviously, his recent form has been stellar, and just his overall season form has been stellar. Only 1 miscut. You look at his recent cuts, they're all top 5 finishes or better. I just love him at that price point. We can go down to Gary Woodland as well. Gary Woodland, going to be a good play. We kind of saw it round 1, went back to the norm where he was just struggling slightly. The small little errors, he was still making those, burning some edges on some putts. And then it really came back. His game kind of took off like we expected it to, and I kind of expect that to happen again this week. You look at his last 4 starts, a 5th last week, 52nd, 23rd, and a 49th. He grades out as a top 10 stat fit as well. Obviously, Gary Woodland's a great total driver and a great ball striker, which is something that you always want to look for. Don't mind Answer at his price point. Sanjay, I expect, will make the cut. This range is absolutely loaded. You could probably make your cash bill out of this range. Ricky has 4 straight top 22 finishes or better. So he's finished 22 or better in 4 straight cuts here at this event. And his game really is starting to come around staff it wise. A lot of that was due to last week, but Ricky's looking like a fine play as well. If we want to go a little bit lower, let's talk about Joaquin Niemann, who I really got onto as the week went on because I had a lot of builds end up kind of in that 8K price range, and I kind of ended up on Joaquin Niemann. So I don't mind him as a play. He's made 3 straight cuts here at this event now, at 31st, the 27th, and his 6th finish. The only problem with him is he's not the best stat fit, especially according to this field. So that does worry me a little bit, but I do think he'll make the cut, which at this price point, paying for a make cut is not going to kill you. Now we can go lower. Paul Casey, just been a stud, making a ton of cuts. The only worry with Paul Casey is he doesn't have any course experience here, but other than his total putting, he ranks out great. His total putting is horrible. He ranks 210 in that. Every other stat is going to be 49 or better. I think he's going to be a good play at that price point. He's pretty much a lesser version of Webb Simpson right now. Great ball striker, great total driver, does everything well except for putting, so I don't mind him at that price point. Sergio's going to be a good play at that price point. Ian Poulter, Kevin Streelman are guys you can go back to the well with, but I want to talk about Doc Redman. So Doc Redman, going to be a great stat fit once again. His only course experience here was a missed cut, and that was 2 years ago, but he still ranks out as top 15 stat fit. He's kind of the same play as Paul Casey. Not a great putter, but everything else is a great stat fit, so I like him as a play. and we're getting him a lot cheaper than we did in the last event that we played him. Then Adam had one. I don't get this. I really don't. The dude was almost 1,000 more expensive last week, and he went out and had a good week. He shot 2 bad rounds in there, round 2 and round 3, which was really worrisome. Then he kind of came back in round 4. I really thought I was going to get an outright bet win with Hadwin after that first round. It kind of seemed like that, but his course history here now is a 35th, 52nd, 74th, and then a missed cut. He still ranks out as a top 10 stat fit. I just think that this is a great price point for a guy that has shown a decent amount of upside recently. If he can just chop off a couple of bad rounds here and there, you get a top 10. Just think that for that price point to get a made cut, that's pretty crazy. And then we can go lower to our boy Harris English, elite stat fit. This dude's top 5 in the field. I don't really know what's going on here with this price point for Harris English. Now, yes, it's because he doesn't have the course experience here, but every single stat that we're looking at is top 23 or better. At this price point, it's going to be tough for me to pass up on Harris English. He had one bad round after the break. The first round back, he shot 72, and everything else has been really spectacular. Kind of what we come to expect from Harris English this week, or this year. So I really do like Harris English at that price point this week. And we can go lower. There's going to be some plays in the low 7K range that you can go with, but let's get into the value tier. So Nate Taylor, we were worried about him last week, like I said earlier, just because he hadn't had that course or the recent form. He hadn't played, since break, but now I like him as a play. Finished T48. He really fell off after the first round. I thought, this guy's going to win me a ton of money this week. He kind of just fell off. Maybe that was a little bit of, rust, getting used to the wear and tear of walking 18 holes, tournament format. That could be. But I'm going to go back to well with him, especially at this price point. It's a little bit too cheap for me to pass up. He still ranks out as a top 20 stat fit and a top 20 play for me this week, especially for a guy that should make the cut. And then we can go a little bit lower. I don't know if I want to go back to the well with Mark Hubbard, but Brian Stewart, we can go back to the well with. I think that'd be fine. Troy Merritt, I like as a play as well. He had a T8 finish in his last event and then a T22nd last week. So he does rank out as a decent play. We know Troy Merritt's a very accurate driver. He does have 2 straight top 22. He had a 22nd and a 17th finish here in the last 2 starts at this course. So I do think Troy Merritt is going to be a sneaky value play as well. And then I was really surprised by Henrik Norlander's price point. Just really shocking. He's pretty much the same play as Troy Merritt, just a little bit cheaper. Obviously made the cut here last week with the 31st finish. Doesn't have the best course experience, but he's a great ball striker. Doesn't make many bogeys. He's an accurate player. He's a guy that should make the cut and a guy that has shown that he can make the cut, especially a lot recently. So I don't mind him as a play. Tyler Duncan's been a stud for us. He's cheap. Still think Matthew Naismith is a fine play. Just needs to clean up some parts of his game. Steve Stricker, I don't mind as well. Quietly, he has made 2 straight cuts. Nothing great, but he has made 3 straight cuts here at this course as well. So it's an interesting play. Interesting week for sure all around. There's so many lineup paths that you can go with to potentially have 6 or 6 across the cut line, which we really haven't had this whole year so far since the break. So this is going to be a week that you can attack with lineups in multiple ways. You can do studs and duds approach if you want. You're going to obviously let in a little bit more risk, or you can do fair and balanced approach. I fully expect 5 out of 6 to be the norm this week, and it's going to be a very interesting week just due to the lineup path of success that you can have this week. So if you guys want to check out the 9to5 membership page, you can. The link will be in the description below. It's $10 a month. It's the best value out there for you guys across the DFS industry. There's a lot of other stuff that you can pay for where you're only getting one piece of the 9to5 puzzle. So we got the member chat, we got the player pool, we got the cheat sheet, we got a first look build for you, and a lot more, guys. So come check out the 9to5 page. It's $10 a month. Join 9to5 Nation. All right, let's have a good week, guys, and let's keep cashing.